Welcome to What's the Point? A question we should all be asking ourselves, and the podcast by brand architect Bill Ellis.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to What's the Point? I'm your host, Bill Ellis, another phenomenal guest today, and it's a very unique story. Adam Mizel, we're going to have a nice conversation. For 30 plus years, he had a business career, Morgan Stanley, launching private equity firms, being on corporate boards, running public and private companies, and he took a very unique yet impactful twist in 2020 to what he is doing now. And that is, he is the co-founder and CEO of Us United. And we're going to have Adam talk about that rather than me. Adam, hi, welcome. I appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me. Super fun to be here.
So let's get right to it. So you had a 30-year business career, one that a lot of people would be very envious of. You were very successful. And let me take just a quick step back and point out that your education is from Princeton, which I don't know why, but I've always had an admiration for the people I've met that have gone to Princeton because they have certain qualities about them. And I'm going to come back to that in just a second. But I mentioned that in 2020, your life, your purpose took a significant shift. And it had to do with yelling at the TV. Tell us about that, would you please?
Sure. Yeah. Throughout, like you said, I had a career for almost 30 years in business, a range of different things, but private equity and running companies. And throughout that, I always focused as part of the things that I did on how I could be charitable, how I could try to do things that help make the world a better place. But I did that in the context of, hey, I've got 80-hour-a-week jobs. And so in May of 2020, we were all sitting at home in COVID. George Floyd had been murdered. And as you said, I was yelling at CNN, at Fox, at anybody I could on television about what I was seeing, because I looked on the screens. I said, I don't think this is the country. I know it's not the country that I think I live in and that I love and that I think most Americans love. And I said, what is going on? And something has to be done. And I think in that moment, my wife, who is smarter than me, it was like, you can yell at the television, no one's going to hear you. What are you going to do? And I had one of those, movie epiphany moments, right? I said, you're right. And I know what I'm not doing first. I'm not going back to a traditional, investment business job. I have the flexibility at this moment. The business that I've been co-founded with a friend wasn't going to survive COVID, lots of reasons. But I said, what do I want to do? And I said, you know what? It's not just make another donation. If some people like me with business, financial background, experience, relationships, knowledge, don't give time in addition to money, it's hard to expect things to change. And I said, I don't know what, but I know what I see on the screen. And I see cities burning and violence and anger and racial injustice and division I said, I don't know what I'm doing, but I've been an entrepreneur. I've always started things, found my way. I'm now going to do it in a different way. I'm going to figure out how I can find a way to make an impact on what I'm seeing on television. That ultimately led to people and conversations and resources that led to the creation of Us United. I didn't define it as a movement for unity when I was watching TV in May of 2020. Like any good startup, what you think you're going to do and what eventually you do evolve with talking to people and learning. I mean, I still have the first business plan I wrote for Us United, and there's a few things in there that we're still doing, but it's very different, but that's okay.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that. I'm not an entrepreneur myself, but I work with many and know many. There's a phrase of ready, fire, aim, and a lot of people laugh at that. But my understanding, speaking with entrepreneurs and previous guests, is you get as ready as you can, you fire, and then you can focus on what's working and you adjust as you go. Is that a reasonable analogy from your perspective?
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. I mean, what you're always trying to do in a business sense is find product market and fit, right? And as an entrepreneur, you're willing to break things. You're willing to make mistakes and know that you will learn from those mistakes and those things that you break because you have to. And for sure, that's been part of the Us United journey. We've been doing this for 4+ years. You could argue 5+ years from May 2020, but in terms of really figuring out at Us United and that plan, oh my God, so many things we've done haven't worked, and we pivoted and tried different things. I've also been very focused on not, we have limited resources, right? You have to make sure that you can test in a cost-effective and mission-effective way, and not all of a sudden go all in on something that you're wrong about, because that's hard to recover from. And so, we moved in different ways. And over the last year, I'm sure we'll get into it, I think we've really found the lane and the path to success, and sort of have got that, another venture business term, MVP, that minimal viable product. We got it, right? We're executing against it. And now it's how do we get more people involved, more, honestly, donors and money involved, and scale what is working to the next levels. And that's what I'm spending all of my time on.
Brilliant. I'm really impressed with you had that turned into action, as opposed to, yeah, it sounds like a good idea, and then you go right back to what you're doing. A lot of us have done that. So help the audience understand a little bit more about the concept of Us United and effort to build, expand unity, kind of like bridge building, but give us your concept organization, and then we get into how it's working now.
Sure. I mean, the simple description, Us United is a movement to build unity in America by giving everyday Americans the resources and tools they need to reunite their country. Unity is not going to happen from our political leaders today, from our media today. It has to be, we the people, right? So that's the simplest enunciation. A layer or two down from there, one, we looked at it and said, a big part of the challenge is most of us live, work in social media in ever-shrinking bubbles. And outside of those bubbles, we categorize people and the world around us, and then we label that. And none of that is bad. That is normal. But the result of it is you will never find people who are going to empathize, sympathize, or compromise with a label. None of us are doing that. We do that with other humans, with other people, through direct connection. Whether it's you and me on our call like this, in a conversation like this, or whether it's you and me sitting down having coffee or dinner, we create that human connection. We see different perspectives from those with different experiences. We see and understand there's gray, and then we find our way forward, right? But that's happening less and less, right? So Us United at the core says, how do we get people out of those bubbles?
Yeah.
And that's what we do. We do that in a digital world. We have all kinds of digital tools, from a unity pledge and lots of ways to share that and spread that in social media, to we have a 30 for Us monthly Zoom where anyone can show up, and we have a topic and a structure, but you end up in a breakout room of 5 random Americans. Well, you're not in your bubble anymore.
Yeah.
And those conversations are amazing. People love it. We do lots of in-person events, from our holiday spectacular, we'll get into, to service days and cleanup days and all kinds of things. We've created a Sheriff's Unity Network. My co-founder and close friend is a sheriff in Flint, Michigan, Genesee County, also now running for governor of Michigan. But sheriffs, most people in this country don't even know what they are. I would say I didn't know 5 years ago what a sheriff is, but most people don't realize they probably voted for one, because all sheriffs are elected and is whatever. But because of that, they do a huge amount of work in building bridges in their communities, supporting people both in need, finding connections, because that's part of how you do better law enforcement. And you have to address the community issues. A very smart sheriff, a number of them said this, and look, yeah, we arrest people, but if we don't arrest the problem, the underlying problem, we just have a revolving door of people coming in and out of our jails. And those problems are homelessness and drugs and mental health and healthcare and community relationships and racism. And like, if we aren't confronting those, we're not keeping our communities safe. As my friend Chris says, his job, and he put on every car in Genesee County. And when I saw this, I was like, this guy's the real deal. Their mission, most law enforcement, protect and serve. Great. He added to unify. That's just think about it. You add that to the law enforcement job, to protect and serve and to unify. I just changed the entire job in 2 little words. And that's what sheriffs do. And so we brought them together in a network to build unity and to help take some of the projects and programs and ideas that we have at Us United and spread that grassroots locally around the country, right? And we do all kinds of those things. And the last thing at the overview, I'd say that's culminated. We've created something called National Unity Day. It's now officially on the National Day calendar that is maintained by the National Day Registry. So this December 13th and every second Saturday in December going forward is National Unity Day. And we need that. Good Lord, more than ever. Just look at the last month and everything that's happened from assassinations and shootings and violence and our government shut down on both sides. Like, we have to, so let's have a day where we say, let's be unified. And we have a lot of ideas of how what people can do, but like, that's what Us United is all about, because we have to engage you, me, the 70% of America that doesn't think we're as divided as they're told by the politicians and by our media, who don't want us to be, but look at everything, right? Look and show up every 2 years or 4 years in particular and vote and are disgusted. You're disgusted, I'm disgusted by what we see every day. Most people then say, I hold my nose, I'm going back to work, I'm going back to school, I'm taking care of my kids, I'm paying my mortgage, I'm going to the store, and whatever I'm doing. Because I don't want to, that's not who I am, and I don't want to, I'm not energy. But the problem is it gets worse, because who's left to speak? More extreme views, invested in division on both sides of the political aisle or in the cultural aisle. And they just start, and it gets worse and worse and worse. And we all pull back more and more and more. That is going to lead us further into the ditch we're in. So Us United's job is to say to you, you don't have to be a political junkie. You don't have to be a, fighting junkie, but if you don't participate, it isn't going to change. So here are little things you can do. Because if we all do a little bit, it's going to be a very different culture here, in a very different country, and we will be unified. So
that is going to have to start at the grassroots level, because you are 100% accurate in my view, saying that we're not going to get that from the politicians either side, regardless of party or belief. We're not going to get that from the media, because they're now profit-driven as opposed to news and unbiased view-driven. So it's going to have to start at the grassroots. I had a guest recently, Chip, who the same type of thing, sees the lack of unity in this country, and he's also moving on from a full career, but his approach is a little bit different, and that is talking about trying to instigate national service for everyone, and that's a big ask. But I bring that up because he and I talked about a survey that was done by an insurance company that talks about the percentage of people that don't know anyone any longer in their neighborhood, and how small the bubble really truly has come. I think what you're talking about, and expand on it if I'm correct, is the answer is for us to try to focus on our similarities as opposed to our differences. And that's hard when everything we hear is based on the differences. Let me jump back to what you had talked about. You talked about Sheriff Swanson up in Flint. There was a very significant event that you and he engaged in shortly after the whole George Floyd situation. Will you tell us what that was, please?
Sure. And it was just Chris. I didn't even know him at that point. But you're right. Chris, and I'm going to guess a lot of people, as I tell the story, like, oh yeah, I remember that, Jared. So on May 30th, 2020, I was in night, and there were protests across the country, and many, many, many cities in America burned. You had police and BLM and community protesters clashing over the murder of George Floyd, and you saw, all you had to do is, no matter what news you watch, what you saw cities in America burn. That day and that evening, Chris showed up in Flint with hundreds of deputies and law enforcement for the same seeming type of event. And at that, in a critical moment, he looked at a crowd that was growing and hostile, and did something that took incredible courage and only worked because of his authenticity. He took off his body armor. He took off his guns. He walked into a very hostile crowd with just a sweatshirt that said sheriff on it, basically. People screaming at me. He said, what do you want? The people here, me and the law enforcement, we agree with you. We want to help you. We don't want to fight with you. What do you want? A few people in the crowd started chanting, "Walk with us, walk with us." He said, "All right, let's walk." And for the next few hours, he and some of his deputies and hundreds growing to thousands, because people started to come out across Flint and Genesee County, marched for hours together, arm in arm, in peace, saying that what happened in Minneapolis was wrong, does not reflect what most of law enforcement is and thinks, and that we have to come together and build our communities. And it just so happened that CNN was filming and was there, and in 24 hours, 3.2 billion people saw that video of one of the very few cities in America that didn't burn that night, because one person authentically reached out and did the unexpected and what was necessary to build bridges, to build community, and to show that he cared, and then everybody cared. And actually, shocking, I didn't see that video that night. Guy was watching a lot of TV and yelling at it. I don't know how I missed it.
You're too busy yelling.
Probably. But so I met Chris 6 months later. Part of that entrepreneurial journey, a friend who was another of our co-founders said, "Adam, you need to come with me to Michigan, to Flint, to meet the sheriff." And I was like, "What are you talking about? It's the middle of winter going to Flint, Michigan." But I've always found in life, advice or adage that often the meetings that I have the lowest expectations for turn out to be the most interesting and life-changing, especially when they're presented to you by someone who you respect and trust, saying you should do something. So my friend Ken said, "You should come do this." I said, "Great, let's do it." And, I met a man in Chris who is exactly, that moment happened, it only worked because of his authenticity, and that's who he is every day. And that's why he's a tremendous leader, become a partner and co-founder in building Us United, and, but one of my closest friends. That's amazing. And that's what unity looked like right there.
And building on that adversity in our country and in society, you and Chris met where you otherwise would never have met, I assume. And that in and of itself is pretty impactful, because it's a clear demonstration to me that when we decide to make the effort to do something, genuinely do something that's intended to be positive, we meet people, like what your work says, start to build bridges to close a lot of the gaps in our society. You talked about you were introduced to Chris, and you mentioned a friend of yours. Was that Ken?
Yeah, so Ken Warneke Jr., who's known as the Free Hugs guy, and it was our third co-founder of Us United. He and Chris had a podcast at the time called the Black and Blue Podcast, talking about Black community and minority community and law enforcement relationships and all kinds of issues. And Ken had said, "Adam, you need to come with me to meet Chris." And like, okay. And next thing you know, they put me on their damn podcast. They put me in the middle of a BLM Diamond Hall. I was like, I thought I was coming to meet someone, not to actually do all this. And that was, for me, that moment was the inspiration for the Us United plan. I said, look, you two guys have literally been risking your lives. We didn't call it unity at the time, but risking your lives to bring people together. Like, I had not done that personally. I said, I'm not opposed to risking my life if that's what I'm supposed to be doing. But I said, but what I am good at is writing business plans. And all about, you've inspired me. Let me write the plan. If you like it, we'll do it. If you don't, we'll think of something else. And they said that plan, I dusted it off, has few things in common to what happens now and a lot of differences, but it was the beginning. And I think to your point, right, I mean, people don't have to do what I'm doing. Like, you could listen to what I'm saying. This guy's insane, right? But you need a few insane people. That's fine. But if everybody just does a little bit, I mean, right now, and we'll talk, on unity. You need to start with post something once a week. Post a positive story you see in your community of someone helping someone else out that looks like unity. Change what contents people are seeing. Restrain yourself from responding in the social media sphere with negativity, right? There's so many comments that everyone leaves on all kinds of things that are anonymous. They can say whatever they want. And a lot of people don't do it, but just don't contribute to that. Post something positive. Share something, like that makes a difference. To your point, be in line at getting a coffee. Buy someone a coffee and sit down with them for 5-10 minutes and have a conversation. out of your bubble, or, do something kind, do something nice. Sometimes it releases serotonin for you,
Yeah.
for the person you're helping, and for the person who sees it. And that's how unity happens, because barriers come down.
And it can be, in my experience, it can be where we don't have to spend money. It's a great thought. And if anyone's in line near me in a coffee shop, I'm happy to accept your free coffee. But it can also be just some type of comment that's positive. And it doesn't have to be, oh, you look so good. It can be the weather's great, or it can be just to throw a positive thought out there, because what we put out, we get back. And that's part of the issue with social media, is how the algorithms work and how that might, like our quote unquote mainstream media is profit driven. The algorithms send you what you disagree with, fuel the fire and rile people up. And we somehow have to try to figure out getting past that. I mentioned Princeton earlier. Motto for Princeton, I think tells quite a bit about your mindset here. And that is the motto is this: in the nation's service and the service of humanity. Was that a seed that was planted in your life back then?
1,000%. Yes. Yeah. I didn't know when, where, or how that would happen, but 1,000%, I looked and said, I'm getting an amazing education. There's a lot of amazing things, and I'm incredibly fortunate to have gone to Princeton. From both that, I met my wife there. I have many of my closest friends still come from and I think there's some treat for a lot of us from college. But but the message was, you're here, you have an obligation to give back to the world, to society, to your country, to whomever. Figure out what that means for you. And everybody doesn't internalize that. I did, I guess, is part of it. I had some mentors when I was early in my career who taught me about charity and philanthropy. They were both very successful and very generous, both with donations, but also with their time and how they treated other people. And, I think that was an important, in my 20s and early 30s moment, where I learned a lot, because we all learn by watching others, in particular those that we do want to emulate or we do respect as mentors. And for me, that was another moment of saying, hey, you have to do more in life. And there is more to life than going to work and coming home. And just being engaged and committed as a parent and to your family and to your spouse, those are key components. But you also have to look outside that. And that's part of lessons hopefully we taught our children, right? Again, not just donate money, but how can you help people? Volunteer here, do something in your community. Those are really important moments. I mean, we'll talk about, we were on, as you and I talked earlier, for 2.5 months this summer, I drove across the country in the Unity in Action road trip, visiting sheriffs and our Sheriff Unity Network and thousands of Americans in almost every state, talking about what is unity, what does it mean to you, how do you see the country more or less divided, what works for you in building bridges and connecting with people, what are you fearful of, what are you hopeful about, all kinds of things. And one of the more, you learn a lot from people. And one of the woman that we talked to in Birmingham, Alabama, talked about the 5-mile rule. She said, look, I think the way we build unity in this country is we follow the 5-mile rule, which means just focus on within the 5 miles of where you live, knowing your neighbors, to your earlier point, volunteering in your community, actually participating here and there with local government, helping people, supporting people, be nice in your community.
Yeah.
And if you just do that within 5 miles, you've got unity in all of America, because everyone's 5 miles overlap. And it can seem Herculean to say, I live in Birmingham, Alabama, and I can figure out how to be nice to, or I can even agree with someone who lives in Los Angeles, California, or Portland, Maine. It's a very far away. You don't have to. Just do your 5 miles, because someone in Portland, Maine, or someone in LA, California's 5 miles will eventually intersect all the way back to you in Birmingham. And we've changed culture. And so those are the little things and the little ways that we can make a difference. You don't have to do something massive. Little things. There's 370 million of us, or 60 million of us. If we all practice the 5-mile rule, I don't think this country would be as divided. I think the media would be saying different things on television. I think different people will get elected to offices on all sides because the people and the culture would reflect something different.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone I talk to wants it. They just we have to help them. We have to give them, hope is an incredibly powerful word.
Yes.
Incredible. One of the most powerful in the English language. Love is another one, but hope is really powerful. And I heard that everywhere I went. We need hope. So hope, that's what I'm trying to do, is give hope. This can be done. It's just how you do it. Or there are other ways, but hope you can do this.
So let me hope, actually, absolutely, and I'll come back to that. And also, let me tie back to something you said just a moment ago. Thank you for agreeing to be a guest on this damn podcast.
I've had a little
Hopefully
more
you had a
practice.
little more
Hopefully I'm
notice
better
here.
at it.
A little more notice and a little more practice, exactly. A lot of the people that listen here are in business, trying to succeed in business, trying to get their career going, and I'm sure most of them that listen are open to how do we improve society. But share with us and our listeners, please, Adam, what was it like shifting from career business executive to now basically a charitable situation?
It's not as big a shift as that description makes it sound, because in the end, a not-for-profit is a business,
Mm-hmm.
right? In the end, think about, and this is the same when I was investing in companies or running companies. I need to have, I gotta get revenues. In a not-for-profit sense, often that's fundraising, but it can be other things. I mean, you see that I'm wearing a nationality hat. When we sell merchandise, because part of building a brand for Unity in that example is people can wear things, but how do I create revenues from donor streams to merchandise streams to events, different things? Because if I don't have enough revenues, I can't pay my expenses.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's the same as in business, right?
Yeah.
Instead of raising money from investors for a company or trying to convince the public to buy our stock, I'm convincing people to believe that our mission and our cause, our product, Unity, and how we do it is worth their investment. It may be a donation, but they're investing. No different if I'm selling, a widget, a car, movie distribution, which I ran a company of, whatever it is. Someone has to believe my service is worth buying, and then I better manage my expenses thoughtfully and carefully so that I'm investing the revenues and/or capital that I've raised in a prudent way to build the right product, the right service. So in that sense, they're similar. Now, there's things that are easier about trying to ask someone to donate to a company versus to invest in a company. There's things that are harder because a donation is a donation. You're not ever going to get a return financially. You're going to get a return emotionally and pride and energy and good vibes and all those things versus I'm giving you money because I think you're going to give me back more. So there are pluses and minuses, but I think part of this success that we're having at Us United is because I think of it like a business. And that's back to why I went on this journey. And you need people who do that because it is.
I'm glad you answered the question the way you did, because it was asked intentionally to make them distinctly different, realizing from experience, but also from our previous chat, that it's not as significantly different as people think. And also for explaining something that a lot of folks, myself included for a long time, didn't really get. Not for profit doesn't mean not for revenue. It means we're not here to make profit to help shareholders, if you will. We're here to gain revenue to fulfill our mission. The fact that you're focusing on community level initiatives to a large degree, how are you going about that? And maybe one way to open the door for you to explain it to us better is talk to me, please, about 30 for Us.
Sure. Well, two things. One, 1,000%, if we're going to build unity in America, it will be at a grassroots level, 1,000%. But you have to change culture, right? One of the things that I've seen, and I've talked to lots of people and work with people who are in the bridge building space or the unity space, because everything's got a space. Back to the terminology, your question on business, right? I'm in the unity space. Just like someone's in the climate space or the, defense space. Everything's got a space. But one of the things that I think has been a struggle for the many people trying to build these bridges is how do you engage, back to what I was saying before, that huge swath of America that doesn't think we're as divided as they're told by politicians and media, but aren't engaged. Many people trying to build unity or build bridges attract the people who already believe in it. And you need that, but you need to attract, and back to my business challenge here at Us United is how do you attract the people who don't think we're divided, but don't participate? Because those are the people who have to engage. And so a big chunk of what we're trying to do at Us United is actually much higher up than the grassroots level, which is how do I fill the funnel? How do I get people to pay attention? How do we create a different media story? How do we change culture, right? And so there is a part of brand, right? Us United as a name is something that I think is very easily understood and engaging and can be a brand. Because I ask everyone when I'm talking about what we do, first of all, think of brands that are out there that stand for division. And every one of us can think of plenty. And again, that's not a political statement. It's nothing. There are a lot of organizations out there that are there for division. And then I say, think of a brand that stands for unity, that's there to be a unity brand. And most people look at me and don't have an answer. Well, how in the heck are you going to build unity if you don't have a brand that people can rally behind and feel supportive and energized around? And then from brand, you get to merchandise and different, you want to wear what you're proud of, right? I'm always in purple. Purple is the color of unity, right? Part of a brand. Well, now I also have to tell you stories, like things that still unify America. Sports, music, food. And then I kind of add, because I have a golden retrievers, dog, right? But sports and music and food in particular are things that we all unify around. Yeah. So part of what we're trying to do at Us United is tap into those cultural drivers and engage them in this idea that unity's cool. I mean, people like to watch fighting. Maybe here's how unity can be cool. Watch people, when we all come together. Behind me, I'm a big baseball fan, New York Yankees fan. We won last night. Yep. But take any locker room in sports, baseball, football, basketball, doesn't matter. Those are some of the most diverse groups of people. They're all coming together, unified for a common goal and their common success. And they don't find themselves fighting over the things that we all do. And they find ways to understand each other because they're united to do that. Well, broaden that. I just saw, I said better than me. Tom Brady was doing a speech, he put it on socials, where he said, hey, I get 100,000 people in a stadium every weekend cheering together. We're building unity, right? If you're cheering for the Patriots or you're cheering for the Yankees like I am, by the way, you can unite with fellow fans of the same team. You also can unite with the people you're fighting against. I mean, most people think Boston Red Sox fans and New York Yankees fans hate each other. They don't. Some do. But most, for 2 or 3 hours, we hate each other. But I got a bunch of texts from my friends who were Red Sox fans last night saying, congratulations. And we were texting back and forth during the game, having fun. We connected. We were understanding each other. We rib each other, and then we could be friends afterwards, and we can talk about tough issues and real issues, right? That's what we're doing. So 30 for us, what you asked about, is taking hopefully more and more people coming in that funnel and giving them, here's a tool. Now you're interested. Hey, unity's kind of cool. That's kind of interesting. All right. So we have a Zoom every first Thursday of every month, 4:00 Eastern. Come join it. We will have a topic for that. Yesterday was our 30 for us, and we talked about the shooting of Charlie Kirk, the attack in the LDS temple in Grand Blanc. And the question was, we never used to start. Now the first question I hear after anything is, was the person who committed the act red or blue? When did that happen? Even 2 months ago, I don't think that was the question that was heard. So the topic was, is that how you think when you hear about this? Do you ask whether the person was red or blue? Do you think that's a question that actually is a reasonable question? And how do we move forward from there? How do we find the common ground? If that's where we're starting, or if that's not where we're starting, how do we change people from thinking that? We had dozens of people having an interesting conversation in a breakout room of 5 random people. Back to my bubble, right? Well, all of a sudden, we got somebody in Louisiana, someone in Denver, someone in New Jersey, someone in Iowa, and someone in Oregon on that call, and someone's 20, someone's 80. You're gonna hear a lot of different thoughts, but you're gonna learn from those thoughts, right? And so 30 for us is sort of a grassroots at the top, sports, music, building, content into the funnel where they meet. People now are getting engaged in learning how to talk to each other and learning to respect and accept differences. On our road trip, we got the privilege of sitting down with Shaquille O'Neal for an interview. Terrific. I mean, on every level, and super smart, super thoughtful, wonderful human. And his point was, he said, look, the country's not divided. We are people in a country. People might be divided. And so my question to him is, Jack, how do you deal with that? He said, look, I'm not divided with anybody. I respect everybody. And if you treat people with respect, they reciprocate. And if someone doesn't reciprocate, okay. I say politely thank them for their time and enjoy the conversation and go on my separate way. I don't get in an argument with them. I respect myself too much to do that.
Wow.
I'm not, but if you enter your conversations with respect, you will end up at unity, because you will listen and you will hear and you will discuss. You won't argue from a place of respect. People leave that, everyone thinking a little bit differently, and certainly leaving that in a positive way. Incredibly thoughtful, profound person and insight. And, that's great. Those are the kinds of lessons that come out there.
Shaquille is just an amazing human being. I first knew of him and admired him because of his college career at my university of LSU. But I would love to get Shaq on this damn podcast. So
I could tell you there was not easy to make that happen given his schedule, but yes, you can try for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and that's all I can do is try and put it out there and see what the universe says. There's several things that you've mentioned that I want to try to get back to. And that is, I watched a little bit of the Yankee-Boston game last night. And what struck me, not even thinking about our conversation today, to be honest, is one of the scenes of the crowd was when the Yankees were kind of taking charge. And they showed the crowd where it was like 10 Yankee fans with all of their garb and in the frame, and then 1 or 2 Boston Red Sox fans with all of their garb standing there. And some were elated and some were like, oh boy, here we go. But they were there together. And it wasn't like a sporting event was going to change their lives, or it wasn't something worth getting so worked up about that you were going to get to the point of hate or near hate of the individual because of that. One of the things I've learned, and one of the things that is very difficult, I believe, for all of us to do, is the difference between acceptance and agreement. I need to accept that you have an opinion, whatever that opinion is. I do not have to agree with it. But if I can respect you to the point of appreciating the fact that you have an opinion, whatever it is, and different than mine or not, that goes a long way. That shows respect. That said, it's really hard, I think these days in particular, to do that, given the fact you talked about asking people in the 34Us, when these things happen, was your first thought blue or red? Well, if you have any media on, you don't have to give it a thought. That's what they're putting out there. Whichever network you're going to, they're going to say, well, it was someone blue or someone red, and there's going to be spin all the time. So it's really difficult in the face, I think, of how media and how our politicians across the board are acting these days. Have you found any way, Adam, that you can start to kind of whittle that impact in any way to lessen it?
Sure. I have thoughts and ideas. A couple things. First, to your point, I often say unity does not mean unanimity nor uniformity, right? That is not what unity is. It is that respect to communication. It is discussion. It is a belief that ultimately we're looking to find commonality and ways to move forward, not ways to fight and dig in positions. So I agree with something you said there, and it's very, very important because we should not all agree. It'd be a very boring place, but we should be able to listen and learn from that. I mean, to your point, I mean, when I drove across the country today, I had lots of people say, so-and-so, or the people on this side or that side, they don't listen. They just want to be right. And they dig in and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And a couple of things I always say. First of all, to your point, when it comes to media, it is important to try to to hear multiple sides, because you made a point earlier, media today in America, it's always been true, but I think it's been exacerbated by changes in technology and changes in how we consider media. They're there to make profits, which means eyeballed ratings, which means being controversial, being opinionated, not fact reporting, and baiting drive people to pay attention, right? The old cliche, if it doesn't bleed, it doesn't read, right? Or you don't watch the plane land safely, you want to watch the plane crash. Pick whatever metaphor you want. You have to understand that that's what media's job is to do. And so, I mean, I can only speak for me. I watch less of it. I read more, but get multiple sources, right? Either in your own energy and time, watching different things. There's an interesting company called All Sides, the media company. And what they do is on their website or their app, on any topic, they have 3 stories right next to each other. One that's blue, one that's red, and one that's center, basically, right, left, and center. And they try to at least make it easy for you to read multiple perspectives and reporting on the same issue. And if you do that, you're going to learn a little bit more because, again, it's very hard to find a unbiased source anymore. And so it's more work on you or me to read more things, but you'll probably reach your own opinion versus being told what to think by someone. That's important, what you're saying. I mean, the other thing I say to everyone in how to make those connections and build those bridges, especially when you, in the face of when you think people aren't listening to you, right? As you said, people often think of this. If someone's they express whatever their opinion is and you disagree and you say, hey, I don't agree with you. You're wrong and I'm right. And this is why. Are you listening to that? No. The minute someone tells me I'm wrong, I'm not listening. I'm just not. I mean, if they tell it to me that bluntly, basically, so my advice to a lot of people to navigate those is, if you're not agreeing with could be a stranger, could be a friend, could be a family member. The way I try to address an issue is not with I'm right, you're wrong, but with a personal experience or story, meaning whether it's something that's happened to you, to a friend, to a family member, to someone you know, something you've seen that illustrates a different perspective than what you're hearing. Because if you describe a personal experience, I can't tell you you're wrong. It's your experience. It happened to you or someone you know. I can say, boy, I've never seen that. Yeah. Boy, wow, that can't happen that often. But I can't say you're wrong. I can't get hostile with you because you're sharing an experience. And in doing that, you're making a connection no matter what. Yeah. But you're making difference. To give a real example to that, I was in our road trip. I talked to a stream on the right and the left and a lot in the middle everywhere. Talking to a woman in Montana named Misty in a little town fair. And she had a stand at the fair where she was selling a range of Trump and MAGA and merchandise and t-shirts, all in the aggressive variety that we've seen and people see in places. I had a similar conversation with someone in Omaha in a store that's sold probably as aggressive on the left side of topics, and to come back in a second. So Misty and I were talking, and one of the things we talked about, she's like, look, on immigration, she brought it up, immigration. She said, look, I'm not against immigration, but we shouldn't have people in America that don't love the country. I said, well, who doesn't love America that's here? And she said, Arabs. I said, what? Tell me why. She's talking about it. I said, Misty, let me tell you a story. A true story. So I spent a lot of time in Michigan because of my friend and partner, Chris, and I was at a fundraiser in Dearborn Heights, Michigan, for a gentleman, Arab American, running for re-election to city council. He's announcing his re-election. Probably 200 people in this little restaurant, almost all of them Arab Americans. I said, Misty, before this fundraiser started, every single one of them stood up and sang the national anthem. I said, I've been to lots and lots of fundraisers for politics, for lots of things with lots of white people. I've never seen that happen anywhere ever in my life. I said, so I think they love America as much as you do. And she looked at me and she said, you know what? You've changed my mind a little bit.
Yeah.
I've never heard anything like that. Now, if I just said you're wrong about that, whatever, we'd be in an argument. What I said is, here's something that happened in the largest Arab American community in the country. And that's, and I don't know if I changed your opinion, her opinion, 5%, 10%, 20%, but move the needle. And there's other things we talked about that she changed my mind on because we were sharing experiences. And so I think that's a really powerful tool for all of us.
Yeah, I agree. So we're getting really close to the time you committed to. And again, I appreciate your time because I know it's valuable. You're maybe not as busy as Shaq, but I know you're very busy. So thank you, Adam, for being here. But from a guy whose most of my career has been in the world of branding, I'm not going to get into philosophy or definitions on that, but two things that I want to get addressed because I think they're important. First, you talked about you were in blue states and red states and then states in between. And ironically, those states where the media says, well, it's too close to call or it's 50-50, they designate them as purple states. So there's your purple unity color right there. So if we can get all of the political maps, whether it's red or blue, I don't care, shifted to purple, that's starting to show some more unity. But a more serious, if you will, or business level talk on branding, you have named the initiative Us United, and you have the U and the S capitalized. And we talked about this earlier, but I want you to explain to our listeners, does that cause confusion? Some people that I've talked to about it think it says United States United, and talk about your intention your intention was very much to have it capitalized U.S. Explain that to us.
Sure. And I think exactly that. We spent a bunch of time thinking about what's the right name and then logo for a movement for unity. And great ideas emerged. Lots of conversations and different inputs, and that's part of the creative process. And we came up with Us United, and we consciously, to your question, wrote U.S. capitalized with United so that it could mean different things to different people. 1,000%. You see capital U.S., you think United States. Great. United States United. Yes. But equally important, us, the word us, because us, all of us have to get united, right? And so it means both. And then even third, and was Us United, it ties into sports because so many professional soccer teams, both in this country, certainly in the Premier League, which Americans watch more, are, you have Manchester United, you have DC United in this country, you have whatever it may be, sports unifiers. So you have all these different, let's come together on our team. Our team is Team Unity, Us United, right? US United is, think of it as a football team, us, all of us, United, like whatever you want it to be, it's inclusive and it's inviting to everybody because that's what unity is, right? Because you don't get to pick who you unite with. You can, but then you're probably being divisive. The point of unity is there's things we can all unite around. And so we wanted the name and our logo to be that invitation to everyone and to let it mean what people wanted it to mean to them.
I love it. Giving your target audience the latitude to want something as opposed to being force-fed something. Like, hopefully you'll see what we're doing here as opposed to you really have to or you should look at this. Just a couple more things quickly. And again, thank you for your time. Sure. Just an editorial comment. When you talked about the lady that you had the conversation with and anyone in general, have you or anyone you've ever run across successfully said to someone who's violently on the other side of an opinion from us, I'm right, you're wrong. Have you ever seen or heard of that change anyone's mind? I haven't.
No, I have not. No.
That's
And
just crazy. But that's what we do. And that's social media in a nutshell. It's just
yeah, and look, it's also natural human emotion, right?
right.
I'm supposed to be the unicorn. I mean, believe me, I can tell you there's a lot of times with some certain friends or family where I have stepped in it and made it way worse
Hmm.
because you get emotionally engaged because you know someone or you're related to someone and you react to something they said, they know how to push your button or they didn't, but like, and I'd be like, no, you're wrong. Or, coming back with, whatever aggressive headline or trope, but like, it doesn't work. Right. And we're all going to do it. I'm going to do it again. And I'm supposed to be like this Unity ninja expert. I'm human. We're all human.
Hmm.
And that's back to one of the things, apologize sometimes. Like one of the things I think you can do on Unity Day or on December 13th. I bet almost all of us have some friend or family member we don't talk to at all, or we barely talk to because of something we said or they said or politics, or whatever it is. Hey, on Unity Day, why don't you pick the phone up and reach out and start talking again? Because there is nothing in politics worth losing a friendship or family member over. Because I can promise you, whether it's Donald Trump or Kamala Harris or Joe Biden or JD Vance, remember, they are not worrying and thinking about you or your friend today and with what they say. So why in God's name would you lose a friendship or a family member because of a person who's doesn't even know your name? It's
Yeah.
just not worth it. And you won't, it's just not worth it. You don't have to agree, but you certainly don't have to lose friendships.
Great observation. A couple of more questions. First of all, I'm not asking this as a question. I'm making this as a statement. I wished we would have had time to get more into what your plans are for Unity Day, and maybe we'll get back to that a little bit in the future because I think that's exciting and it gives a lot of
Yeah.
potential for different people to jump on it. But let me more focused on you, Adam, because part of this show is the human side, the humanitarian side of people. And what has this work, this mission, this purpose, how has it changed you? Have you grown, or how has it changed you as a leader, as a partner, as a human?
We spent an hour on that topic.
We're gonna have to come back then.
Yeah, I mean, the shortest answer is it has definitely changed me significantly. Um, I have much more patience, resilience, and appreciation for all kinds of different people. I try to live my life from a place of gratitude and not from expectation. I absolutely try to be much more conscious and have all these things are coming from this experience. I have to be more conscious. I have to be happy. I have to take care of myself. Because look, you cannot build unity or relationship with anyone if you're not happy with yourself and you're not in a place of consciousness and calmness and awareness. It can't be done. Because unity starts with me, starts with you internally. That's stuff, and I've had to learn that and practice that. That has not historically been my normal state, and I think I'm in a journey to do that. I mean, there's lots of things that I do every day to try to help myself be in those places. I think it's allowing me hopefully to connect better with people than I used to. Again, being more authentic and more appreciative, and so a lot of those things.
Yeah, self-evaluation not only takes a lot of courage, it takes a lot of humility because we have to point out to ourselves where we're mistaken. Two more questions, I promise. Then we're
Sure.
done. You talked about being on that First Damn podcast and now this one, and you've had a lot of experience in between. Are there parts of your story that you would love to have shared, but you never asked? In other words, is there a question you would have liked me to ask that I didn't, or a topic that you wanted to expand on?
It's like I used to always end my diligence sessions as an investor with what that basic question: what did I not ask, or what what keeps you up at night, or what are you worried about? I guess I mean I think you've asked a lot of them because I try to be pretty open and transparent on all of these things. I mean, what you didn't ask, or I will say, it's hard. This is hard. And it's, again, no different than when I was investing in or running companies. That was hard too, because as we described everything, it sounds like we're having huge success and this is great. And it's every day, it's 2 steps forward. Sometimes it's 4 backwards. This is 1. I mean, we're trying to do something confronting media and politics in America. Geez, you can't pick 2 bigger and more powerful opposing forces than that. So trust me, this is incredibly hard. It's really hard to raise money. It always is for anything. It's certainly hard in a not-for-profit. It's even harder in a not-for-profit that's in the space of unity. So I've had to spend a lot more of my money supporting this than I expected. And there's moments where I'm like, what am I doing? Like, I've given all my time, all my energy. I don't get paid for anything I do. Now I'm actually paying for the privilege. I mean, so they're hard moments, or people you think are going to help you and they don't. You get disappointed. So yeah, I mean, it's hard. And I don't want to ever people to think it's not. Just like whatever people are doing, it's hard. But you got to be resilient. I mean, you kind of get a sense I don't give up very easily. That's good and bad sometimes. And you got to put the positive energy out there and believe that you're going to be successful and succeed, because that's how you attract back the people and the energy that can help you. But yeah, I think that's the thing we didn't talk about is it's hard.
It is hard. And that's another reason that I'm so grateful that you've come on the show to share what you're doing, because it's hard what you're doing. And I'm glad that you just pointed out that it is hard, because people can often overlook that. To that end, a comment before the final question, and the comment is, all you listeners, if you believe in the least in unity and trying to unify your neighborhood, your community, your country, whatever, the website information for Us United will be in the show notes. Feel free to go there and learn more about it. Feel free to go there and get on the monthly call. Try to get into one of the 30 for Us rooms. You'll grow, you'll learn, it'll be amazing. And I suspect there might be a link there where you can contribute some financial assistance. If you're able and willing to do that, it would be absolutely terrific. Final question, and I think you've answered it throughout this entire hour, but I always end the show with this question, and answer it however you see fit, quick or short. What's the point, Adam?
The point is this country is worth fighting for. The point is all of us are worth fighting for. And the point is we can do this. We're better than this, than what we see. And every one of us, by just making a little bit of change and a little bit of contribution to unity and to the culture, makes a difference. Because how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. How do you take on media and politics that are against us? One person, one bite at a time, because there's 360 million of us. And if we all do a little bit, it will change all of that. That's the point.
Outstanding. And I just want to thank you from a personal perspective for the effort you give, for the time and money and sweat and tears and challenge and everything that it goes with this. Thank you for your time. And I appreciate what you're doing and wish you nothing but the greatest success.
Thank you for having me as a guest. Thanks for the great questions. And thanks for letting me kind of go off on tangents. I appreciate it. I hope for people listening that they enjoyed our conversation. Hopefully they leave it with some inspiration and some idea of what they might do and some hope. Back to what I said, hope is an incredibly powerful word.
Yes, it is. And thank you for presenting that to us. Thanks, Adam. Bye.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in. And if you like what you've heard, please subscribe so you don't miss an episode. We can promise there is value to be gained in every one. Taking a second to rate, review, and share the show helps make us more discoverable and enables others to find out what's the point. If you'd like to learn more about Bill Ellis and his services, please visit his website, billellis.com. See you next time.